Okay, everyone, welcome back to my podcast, Unfiltered Ambition. Today's episode, I have a guest on that I'm super excited to have. I've been looking forward to this. It's Bob with Doppel. For anybody that knows anything about when you own real estate, you're going to hire somebody at some point, whether that be to make a repair or build something new. And what can you do to look into those people? What are some due diligence items that you should be looking for? I'm hoping Bob can help clear some of that up for us today. Bob, do you mind introducing yourself and what Doppel stands for and what does it do?
Sure. My name is Bob Bain. I'm the chief investigator with the Department of Professional Licensing through the Department of Commerce. We license contractors is one of the 20 professions my team investigates, and we enforce the laws and rules that govern contractors. And I'm going to focus on those folks because I guess that's what the podcast is about today.
So what does Doppel stand for? Because I don't even know if people know that.
Division of Professional Licensing, excuse me.
Perfect. And so you're over specifically contractors, right?
Correct. I have a team of 11 investigators throughout the state of Utah. We have 20 different professions that we regulate, investigate complaints on. That's what we do.
So when you say there's 20 professions, are you saying that there's only like 20 professions that are required to be licensed through Doppel?
No, Doppel is split up into 3 different groups now. There's the professional healthcare. There's the occupational conduct unit. That's my unit. The names have been changed just recently. We've split into 3 teams. There's 60 different professions that require a licensure through the state of Utah, through Doppel specifically. My team handles 20 of those different professions. They're anywhere from engineers to land surveyors, security guards, funeral homes, funeral directors, and then all of the construction trades, plumbing, HVAC, electricians, and E100s, which is the engineering contractors, B100s of general building contractors, and all the specialty contractors below those.
Okay. So say I'm going to have some work performed on my house. I'm going to hire an electrician.
Mhm.
And before I hire an electrician, what would be some steps that I could take to verify their licensure and if there's anything wrong with their licensure?
Okay, the first thing I would do is to check for their license on our Doppel website. You go to www.dopl.utah.gov, and you can click on a link that says verify a license. If they're doing electrical, plumbing, HVAC will be coming up. There's going to be some changes for that. But electrical and plumbing, they need a separate contractor's license. You just can't call a journeyman or apprentice plumber to come to your home to do work. They have to be part of a contracting company. So they have to have an electrical or a plumbing contractor's license. Those folks will have people that work for them that will go out to the job sites and do work. A lot of people hire handymen. Handymen cannot do electrical and plumbing or HVAC work.
Okay.
They can't touch the premise wiring. A lot of times people will try to get the work done as cheap as they can, and that's when they run into problems. They'll hire somebody who's doing a side job as an apprentice, which they can't do, or they'll hire a journeyman who's doing side work, and that journeyman isn't part of a contracting company, so they can't do that work. So you want to make sure that you go to our website and check. You can also check for any adverse actions taken on their license. You can also make sure that one of the biggest red flags are most of the work that's done requires a permit. A lot of these guys that aren't legitimate will say, "Oh, we don't need a permit," because to get a permit, they have to prove that they are licensed. And you definitely want to have a permit drawn because that's when the building inspectors will come out to make sure that the work is done, and the city requires them to provide their information as far as their licensure to get a permit.
Yeah, so that runs a bunch of random thoughts in my brain because what a lot of people also don't know is our sellers' disclosures have updated in the recent years, requiring sellers to disclose if they have permitted the work. So when you go to sell any property, you're required to disclose if it's permitted as well, which a lot of people don't know about that update. They think, the pros and cons of in the past was that people didn't want to permit it because then the city would increase their taxes on their properties. So they would try not to permit things. But now it's kind of like you just have to, you're going to have to disclose it at some point.
It's really a safety thing because the building inspectors, they have really extensive education on making sure things meet code. And when things don't meet code, especially the electrical, plumbing, and HVAC, is when you start running into problems and people's lives are in jeopardy from
Yeah.
fire, ventilation, fumes. So that's so critical to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Another thing that I thought of when you were talking was, so sometimes it can be a little bit tricky because I've tried this to get in and see if they have any, I don't know what it is, like dings on their licensure or something. It's like you have to click in a little bit extra to find that.
Mhm.
So that's something that people should know. If you're looking, you need to take an extra step to find if there's anything against their licensure with Doppel. And why would somebody have something against their license with Doppel?
There could be multiple reasons for having a disciplinary action. They could be, incompetence, negligence. It could be aiding unlicensed practice or using unlicensed people, failure to draw permits. There's a whole list of violations that we can take action on that wouldn't necessarily cause a revocation or loss of a license, but it would put something on their license that people can search out and see. Besides checking on our website, check on with the Better Business Bureau. Do some research on social media and don't just check their websites, because oftentimes you'll have people that put false reviews making a company look really good. Ask for references from other jobs that were done. There's a really big issue in the state of Utah right now with jobs being bid for and money being taken and not any work being done.
My
We'll
goodness.
have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. I can tell you stories. We have a swimming pool contractor down the St. George area, took 16 people for between 50 and $100,000 and didn't even turn over a stone, and then filed bankruptcy and closed his business down. And we see that every single day where somebody will get a license, they'll go out and they'll contract, they'll collect a bunch of money up front, and there's not a good contract in place. You need to make sure that good contract is in place. Don't give a whole lot of money up front. If you do, there's a chance that you might not be able to recoup that money. Even if you do, Doppel doesn't have the authority to order restitution. We can revoke a license, you take that person's license, but that doesn't make a person, the victim's whole again. To
Mm-hmm.
get that done, they're going to have to go through, law enforcement. And even then, there's no guarantee that they're going to be able to pay the restitution. That's why you need to be so careful when you're hiring and working with a contractor. Use a contractor that has a proven track record.
Right. Right. I think those are all really good points. Because Doppel's your only recourse is against their license. You can't actually help people recoup anything. So people have to know that if you hire a poor contractor, you're still responsible for regaining whatever money you lost, whether that be through courts or whatever. And in my personal experience, I've had this happen where a contractor didn't pay a subcontractor and they put a lien on our property, because what people don't understand is that the recourse of the people that you hire is to lien the property receiving goods and services. So if you hire a general and they hire a bunch of people, but you pay that general, but that general doesn't pay all their subcontractors, well, those subcontractors come back and lien your property. So it's important for people to know that you need to have good contracts in place. Make sure that your people are getting paid from your general contractor and all of those things. Otherwise, you'll be fighting liens and all those things. And I've had the same thing, like you've said, where I had that contractor didn't pay somebody and I had to take it to court, and they were doing it to multiple people. So
Yeah, we've
it's
had
a
that
whole
all the time.
process. Yeah, and it's devastating for some people with the amount of money that they give up front before any work is done. Another thing to think about is, so handymen are only allowed to do work up to a certain amount of dollar, right? Is that
Right.
correct?
So you can claim that you can identify yourself as a handyman in the state of Utah. You can do up to $3,000 worth of work without anything required by Doppel, except you cannot do HVAC, plumbing, or electrical. Now, if you get what's called a handyman exemption, you can do up to $7,000 worth of work, and that's labor and materials. And you can cause a lot of damage for up to $7,000. You cannot do electrical, plumbing, or HVAC unless you are a journeyman or a master. Then there's a loophole for them to do that type of work.
Okay.
The problem is they still need to get a permit. A handyman, if permit's required, the monetary doesn't matter. The amount of money doesn't matter. Permits are required. They need to get a permit. You need to make sure that's done.
Okay.
And then just be very cautious on how much money you give them. And sometimes you'll have a handyman will come into a house and they'll do something that's completely under their authority to do. However, a homeowner will want a light socket switched out or something done with the premise wiring or some plumbing work done. And the handyman might say, I can do that for you and do it a lot cheaper than a plumber or electrician. That is definitely a red flag. If they're willing to do something like that, you don't want to take that risk. It's not only is it dangerous, it's also a criminal offense and it's also an administrative violation. We just rehired a full-time criminal prosecutor that's going to look at construction fraud cases throughout the state of Utah. We're continually working with local law enforcement as well because of the amount of fraud that we're seeing, or where people are collecting money and then not completing jobs, walking away. And contracting without a license is a Class A misdemeanor, which is also punishable by a $2,500 fine and up to a year in the county jail if you're convicted. So another thing homeowners have to understand, this is very important, that if you hire somebody, you have an obligation to make sure that that person has the proper licensing. If you don't, there's a violation called aiding unlicensed practice, and the homeowners can actually be cited. And we have cited homeowners before because they knowingly and intentionally hired people that weren't licensed to get a better deal.
Interesting. That's really good to know. Another thing that made me think of when you mentioned that is I had a contractor once that did some asphalt, and right in their name was Utah Asphalt, whatever, and I looked and I saw they had an active license. And so I thought I did my due diligence. But what I missed was that they had a DBA.
Mhm.
And it tied back to a handyman exemption. So can you explain what that is?
So a DBA just associates a license with a license. Make sure that when you pull up our website, if it says a DBA, make sure that you pull up the DBA too.
So it's like the doing business as or whatever. It's
Is
like,
doing business as. They can do multiple companies that are attached to each other, but they need to be attached on their license and to the Department of Corporations. That gives you a better chance if you have to file a civil action against them to get your money back. The other thing that's really important too is if you file a small claims action against a licensed contractor and you win a judgment that's not honored, we can take action then against their license. That might, push them to make the payments back to the homeowner if they want to keep their license. And we do that quite often. I want to say that the vast majority of the contractors out there are trying to do the right thing. They're great. They've been in business and they're doing a good job for the citizens of Utah. But there are, like in every profession, some bad apples that are causing problems and raising havoc for the rest of them out there. And it's sad to see, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't get a complaint that comes in of some homeowner that's given 10 or 20 or $500,000 to an individual that's not licensed or that has taken the money and walked away.
yeah, and it's so hard to recoup. So I might be opening a can of worms here, but
Go right ahead. We're very transparent. Our executive director, Margaret Bussey, my director, Mark Steinagel, are 100% here to promote commerce, but effective, safe, and efficient commerce in the state of Utah.
yeah, and you're always so great to educate me on whenever I call and ask a question. But what is the current requirement for a general contractor? And just to clarify, a general contractor that can build homes, like what? That's like a B100,
Yes.
So what requirements do they have to go through to become a general contractor?
So I'll cover the B100 and the E100. So the B100 is a general building contractor. They build homes, they build apartment complexes, skyscrapers. The E100 does all the infrastructure. They'll do airports, they can do power plants, they can do waterways. To get your B100 or E100 license, you have to show 2 years of experience or exposure to the construction trades. Now, there's no definition of what that exposure is. It could be laying sod for somebody, but once you have those 2 years of experience or exposure to the construction trades, you have to take a 30-hour total course put on by one of 3 different groups. And then once you complete that, you pass a laws and rules examination. And then you can apply for your general contracting or your engineering contracting license. There is no trades exam in the state of Utah at this time for those 2 licenses.
Okay, so just to recap, we are saying that someone could be a sod layer, and they could go take a 30-hour course and take an exam
Hmm.
and then become a general contractor to build homes. Okay. So
Now
I
they have to sign documents saying they're proficient to do the work, and they have to be, that's a
Yeah,
little
yeah. But I think it's important for people to understand because I
correct.
think, and I don't know what it was in the past to have a comparison. There's so many custom builders out there or general contractors that have this licensure, and we put them on this pedestal up here, like, oh, they have this license. They are very proficient in what they're doing. But there's still extra layers we should be going through to verify their capabilities in what they're actually doing.
And
You
that's the
know?
importance of having a building inspector come out and do inspections as the work progresses. So in 2017, the first law rule was changed, and that involved subcontractors or specialty licensors. That removed any requirements for any testing, any experience requirements to be a specialty subcontractor. There's no experience requirements and there's no trade exam. There's no testing at all. You go to a 25-hour course and you can hold one of the specialty licenses. If you want to jump up to a B100 or E100, you attend that 25-hour course. Then you attend an additional 5-hour course that covers the laws and rules exam. You pass that, and then you can get licensed. Now, I know there's some legislative changes coming up to deal with HVAC systems,
Mhm.
requiring some certifications and stuff to get an HVAC license. But up until 2017, at that change, it's when the requirements to hold certain certifications was removed. And then in 2019, I believe it was, is when the V100 and E100 rules were changed.
Okay. So then when it comes to electrical and plumbing, and I know
Mhm.
HVAC's kind of like in its own category right now, they do require some sort of training or education, right?
Absolutely. To do electrical and plumbing, to run a company, you have to be a master electrician or plumber. And then you can open up a plumbing or electrical company. Then you can hire and have journeymen, other masters, and apprentices to work under you. If apprentice is out doing work on a job site, they have certain ratios. They have to be supervised by journeymen or masters. There's a 1-to-1 ratio. Excuse me. There's a 3-to-1 ratio on residential, and a 2-to-1 for electrical on commercial, and a 3-to-1 for plumbing. And they have to be supervised by somebody who holds that journeyman or master's license. And the journeyman and master's is a very difficult license to get. I mean, you
Okay.
have to put in a lot of hours, a lot of schooling, and then you have to make sure that you provide that supervision to the apprentices that are just learning the trades.
And then you guys are working towards something similar for HVAC. Is that correct?
They're going to be require some certifications. Yeah, I don't know right now. Excuse me. I don't know right now what that entails, but
Okay.
so something is coming up. It should be put into effect at the beginning of the year.
So this is my own curiosity. Is there currently any licensure specifically for framing?
And there's a specific license for framing. I believe I can pull it up right now, and I can just kind of give you kind of an oversight of what.
Because are they required to be licensed if they're working under a general contractor?
Yes, they are. So a general contractor can subcontract out to a licensed framer, which is an S260, I believe it is.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know.
No, it's it's an
Well, while you look that up, I think it's important too to know
S220, excuse me.
S220. So I think it's also important for people to know that despite the fact that these people are licensed, it doesn't mean that there's any education requirements for that, right?
Right.
They're licensed showing that they have a business in this, correct?
They meet the minimum qualifications set forth by the state to hold that specific license. So there is no trades exam is the best way I can explain it.
Yeah. Kind of like opening a business license. But the point is that, I mean, I guess let's talk about the benefits of making sure they're licensed is they're required to hold some kind of insurance, right?
So they hold general and liability insurance, and we have authority to take action against them if they're incompetent or they can't do the job. They're working outside of industry standards. There's action we can take against them, and hopefully they respect that license enough. But we do see individuals that will revoke a license and they'll send a spouse or a family member or a coworker to that 25-hour course, and then those folks will get a license too. The original license holder just can't be part of the management team.
So
Now,
there are loopholes for that people find ways around.
yes, and you can be a qualifier. So once you take that course and you get that certificate, you can be a qualifier for up to 3 different companies.
I've
And
heard of that.
And to do that, you have to be a 20% owner, or you have to work at a minimum of 12 hours per week and be paid at a fair. You can't pay somebody $1 an hour just to use their license. It has to be something that's up to industry standards as far as pay goes. But you can go to that course and be a qualifier for up to 3 different companies.
Let me clarify what I think a qualifier is. Someone is a general contractor. Someone wants to become a general contractor, but they don't have the 2 years of experience. So they use a qualifier for 2 years to gain that experience, and that qualifier is kind of responsible for them to a degree. Is that, and then they can gain a license that way?
No, cannot become a qualifier unless you go to the course and get the license. I mean, you can get your B100. I guess you could get your qualification, your qualifier license or your qualifier status, and then work for a company as a subcontractor, and then you can move up to a B100 license, but you can't just jump up to a B100 without getting the 2 years of experience or
Okay.
providing the 2 years of exposure to the construction trades.
Okay. So a qualifier is somebody that's helping a company run by being a part of their company because they're
Correct.
taking some sort of responsibility for it.
Correct.
Okay. Because I've heard a lot of times builders being like, oh, well, I'm their qualifier, and I'm like,
Right.
okay, well, okay, that makes sense.
And there's another issue that we see, and we take action on these folks, absentees, qualifiers. We will have cases where we have a company that's been running for years and they list their qualifier, and then we find out through an investigation, and we just recently had one where we revoked the license for, over a decade. These 2 individuals were listed as a qualifier for a company, and the individuals had no idea they were listed as a qualifier.
Oh,
The owner
wow.
of the company was just filling out documents saying, yeah, these are my qualifiers, and going about business.
Wow. That's crazy. I think this is all some really good information. Is there anything else that you think would be good for people to know about, or any specific case study that you feel like is a good educational tool for anybody?
Feel free to contact us anytime. We'll try to answer any question that we care to. We're always available and willing to try and educate and work with folks. Do your due diligence. Don't give out a whole lot of money before. Make sure you do a good contract. The state actually, under the direction of the governor, put out a new contract that's available. It's not anything that needs to be followed, but you might pull some good ideas from that.
Where do you find that contract?
I think you can find it on our DOPL website.
Okay. So you guys have a contract that you recommend people use with Contractor.
We don't recommend it. It's just available for folks to use.
Okay, great.
We do recommend that there is some type of a contract in place, and we recommend that all of the parties that are involved sign it. A lot of times you will have a contract written out and the contractor doesn't sign it, or the homeowner doesn't sign it, and so there's a dispute. Make sure that if you hire somebody, that if they're subbing out the job, they make you aware of who they're subbing out to, so you can make sure those subs are being paid like you said. Now, right now, a general contractor can either hire people to work for them as a W-2 employee, or they can subcontract out to people that hold a specialty license. Now, if you hold a specialty license, say I'm a framer and I'm working with a large company and I'm doing a large project and I'm unable to keep up with that specialty contractor can actually subcontract out another specialty contractor. And that can go all the way on down the line. They can sub it out a dozen times. There's no level. So that's when the water started getting muddy, because people don't know who's working or who's being paid or how they're being paid. So if you're hiring somebody for a big job, make sure when draws are being made, they're paid to the right people. There's proof that that's being paid. A lot of contractors or a lot of homeowners will make the payments themselves, which is also a safe thing. But there's just so many different ways you have to make sure you protect yourself so you don't become a victim of somebody, out there intentionally perpetrating, scams. And like I said before, the vast majority, are great contractors that try to do the right thing, but there's always those out there that are trying to make money and figuring out a way to make a quick dollar without.
Yeah, yeah, and those are really great points that I've learned myself. Is like, so if I'm going to hire a drywaller for for a project, I'm going to ask them where they're ordering their supplies from, and I'm going to pay direct for those supplies, because then I know the things are getting paid, and then I'm also going to have them sign a lien waiver at the end with the final payment. And it's going to spell out that they're responsible for any subcontractors that they hired for their payments and stuff. And whether that's foolproof protection, it's just one more layer, the saying that with this payment, you're paying all the people that you're hiring,
Correct.
and there's so many levels you could go down, especially when you're building a home from scratch. But it takes some work on the part of the owner to make sure that they're hiring a good contractor to begin with. Cause I've made that mistake. I've hired a bad general and it turned out really poor, as far as trying to manage everything, but you still have to stay involved.
Absolutely. There are cases out there all the time that I know that there's a business plan now where you'll see individuals or companies advertising home inspections. We'll come out for $29. We'll check your HVAC. For $29, we'll come out and check your electrical and your plumbing and stuff. And they'll send techs out there or employees out there. Make sure that the employees out there, you get the names, the ones that are doing the work. If they're service employee and they're doing HVAC and electrical and plumbing, they shouldn't be doing anything that requires the actual license.
Mhm.
We've had cases where we've had apprentices go out and bid jobs or go out to do these inspections and then upsell where they say, yeah, you need all this work done. And that work doesn't need to be done because they get paid straight commission and they're making more money than $200,000 a year as an apprentice because they're upselling. And sometimes the elderly are being targeted. We have a big case going on right now that people are filling out checks for elderly
Mm.
people and then having them sign it for, $50,000, $20,000. Just watch your family members too, as your folks start getting older. And I can say that because I'm elderly now. I'm closer to 70 than 60, but make sure that you take care of those folks that are thinking about having some of that work done. We want those folks to be able to live their life and not have to worry about being, taken advantage of. And unfortunately, it happens
Well,
more
I think
often.
this is all such good information. I super appreciate it. And I super appreciate you taking the time to educate everybody and know that, Bob works at Doppel. So you can call Doppel if you have further questions or how to check out your subcontractors or contractors. They've been a great resource to me. And even if I can't somehow navigate to see where the recourse was taken against licenses and stuff, I can call somebody and they'll walk me through it.
So to file a complaint, you go to our same website, www.dopl.utah.gov. Click on the file a complaint icon, fill everything out, and it'll go to my desk. I'll review it, determine if we have jurisdiction. And if we do, I assign it to an investigator. They'll make contact with you. We have a very heavy caseload, as you can imagine, but we're willing to help. All our investigators are really dedicated to their jobs and they try to do the best they can. Sometimes it gets very frustrating because of, a lot of times we'll get complaints and they expect us to make them whole again or make a contractor come back and finish the job or make a contractor pay them the money back. We just don't have that authority. I wish we did, but we don't. Unlicensed contractors cause a lot of damage and a lot of problems. Licensed individuals that are doing contractor work, when we find them, we're allowed to write them a citation, administrative citation for $800.
Mhm.
You can also report it to local law enforcement, and that's for the first offense, which a lot of times people will say, well, I'm making $500,000 a year doing this, and that's the cost of doing business. And so report it to us, report it to your local law enforcement. We'd be happy to work with any law enforcement agency out there. I actually got a call from a Summit County prosecutor yesterday that's going after a individual for practicing outside of the scope of their license, which is a Class A misdemeanor. He wanted our information. We're happy to work with any local prosecutor. and any local law enforcement jurisdiction in the state of Utah to help out.
Thank you so much, Bob. I appreciate it. That's all super helpful. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to Doppel. Bob, I appreciate all of your information.
Okay, and if anybody has any ideas that we can do to make things better, please let us know. We're always open to new ideas as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. And if there are other real estate related topics you want to know more about, leave me a comment.